What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast pregame show for Sunday, January 17th, divisional round action. I'm Will Brinson. Joining me to take a look at the Chiefs, Browns, and the Saints Buccaneers games from a gambling and DFS perspective for the second week in a row. They did so well that we're having them back, or they are legally obligated to return based on contractual reasons. Larry Hartstein and RJ White. What's up, fellas?
What's up? They make me, spend too much time with Brinson now. I'm starting to know what Wilson and Breach feel like.
It's a very, Larry, you don't have the full immersive experience quite like RJ and those guys. Fortunately for you, it is very much like Stockholm Syndrome or that Seinfeld episode where George is like, Stanza. Like eventually you're like, like Brinson's not a terrible human.
Well, I don't know. I listen to like every minute of your podcast, so I feel I'm right in there with those guys who go through it with you. But anyway, there's no place I'd rather be, to be honest.
Well, thanks. I really do appreciate you guys joining us. If you're watching, if you see, we'll put it out. We'll put tweets out with the links, but Twitch TV, twitch.tv/CBS Sports HQ, and on YouTube, search for Pick Six Podcast. Make sure you subscribe to those so you can get alerts when we go live, and you can click right through on your phone. We'll be doing a recap, of course, tonight after the game. John Breach and I will do we will sweat the fourth quarter. Last night was quite the sweat, as it appeared that Lamar Jackson was going to try and take the teaser through the back door. Then Lamar Jackson got hurt. And then Tyler Huntley was going to take the teaser through the back door. And ultimately, I don't know if you guys saw the screenshot that Debo posted. Breaking: Brinson loses all his bets. Thanks, Debo. Hopefully tonight will be better. If you want to win your bets, you'll want to listen to this show, but you'll also want to check out the Early Edge podcast on Sportsline. I think Larry and RJ, were you guys on this morning? I believe. I think I saw that.
We were on.
Dishing out.
We gave out some good picks, some Browns plus 9.5 before it went down to 8 now, which we'll get into in a minute.
Yeah.
So hope you listen to Early Edge because you got some good lines earlier.
Well, yeah. Let's dive right in. No need to. Enough of the pleasantries. Yeah. Throw up, Debo, go ahead and throw up the lines, right? I went ahead and got it pre-queued. Look at me prepared. Very unusual circumstances for today's podcast or today's preview show. The Cleveland Browns at the Chiefs. A shot. I mean, like, we are potentially 60 minutes away from a Browns-Bills AFC Championship game. If you thought that the times we're living in couldn't get any weirder, that would certainly throw things for a cosmic style loop. But the line and the line would lead you to believe it's at least possible with the Chiefs down from 10 to 8. A shocking move, Larry. I mean, I think you even, when we were sort of getting ready for the show, you're like, whoa, what, 8? I'm seeing 9. What do you think about this line move, and what does it tell you about how the market is reacting and who's betting, and how much can we read into it?
I think you could read a lot into it because we just got an update from William Hill, and they're still showing 55% of their money coming in on the Chiefs. So William Hill is, a big book that caters, a massive book that caters, to the public and also professionals, but it is a public book. And I think we're seeing that some major sharp groups have come in on the Browns with some heavy money to knock this all the way down to 8. RJ, do you agree?
Yeah, we talked on the Pick Six podcast earlier. We recorded Thursday. It came out Friday. I didn't understand why this line was 10 to begin with. The Chiefs hadn't been playing well. They hadn't won by more than 6 since week 8. Cleveland has played as well as most of those opponents. I mean, I wouldn't put them in the New Orleans category, but everyone else that the Chiefs have played, they're at least as good as them. And the matchups look good. Casey's vulnerable against the run. The Browns want to run. Baker's been playing well. He's not been throwing interceptions. So it just seemed to me like there's no reason for Cleveland to be plus 10 in this game, confident coming off beating their arch rivals, even though they didn't have their coach. It seemed like everything is going right for them. So I was surprised this move didn't come earlier. I thought at 10 they were waiting, to raise the limits, but maybe it just took those Sunday, take the top off and start firing away on Sunday. And then we see the effects of that now.
Yeah, early in the week when I went on Sportsline and posted at plus 10, I was kicking myself thinking there might be a 10.5. That's the way it seemed early in the week. But now I'm so glad that I locked it in when I did.
Yeah, I mean, my thought process was that I would look towards the Browns come kickoff, and that I would, like you were saying, Larry, like I would wait as long as possible because this line would keep moving up because the Chiefs are the Chiefs, so Patrick Mahomes, and they're a very good team. I mean, RJ, do you think the Browns are plus 340 on the money line. I mean, is this are they live to win this game, or is it's just simply 10 is too many for an offense with Baker Mayfield that has been operating well? It could certainly come through the back door, absolute worst case.
I certainly think they have a chance. I wouldn't sit here and say that the Browns can't win this game the way they've been playing. But it's unlikely. Plus 340 seems like a decent value. Because he just needs to stay close. So Cleveland just has to dictate the first half, make sure they can run the ball. If they get behind, 14 and have to rally a comeback, I don't know if Baker Mayfield is going to do that against a pretty good Chiefs pass defense when he's throwing to Jarvis Landry and then I don't know who else, Kadarius Hodge, Rashad Higgins. I don't think that's going to get it done.
Okay. All right, we're going to dive into the prop bets and everything else, but we're going to get the DFS out of the way first. Not that DFS is bad by any stretch of the imagination. And I have exciting. Yes, Larry.
Oh, sorry. Can I just throw in one more thing on the spread before
whatever you want?
Clay Martin, the head ref, 70% ATS for the road teams historically. So that's interesting. And one other thing I wanted to say about this, and I think we're all on the Browns, but the first half line. I mean, Chiefs have started so slowly historically, this season, playoffs last year. It was 6.5. I want to check what it is right now.
Six right now.
6. Okay. So
I think slightly juiced to the Browns. I think it might be minus 115 on the Browns, but I also looked into that. I have that down in my notes too, to talk about that here in a little bit as well.
Yeah. And while we're sort of doing the overview, we'll get to Saints Bucks as well in a few minutes, but the over under, it dropped half a point on Sunday morning down to 56.5. And I was seeing somewhere a buddy of mine said that it looks like a couple of sharper books have gone down to 56, which means that there could be a lot of money coming in on the under. Any thoughts about how we might see that line move, especially over the next hour or so as we get ready for kickoff?
Yeah, 57 seemed like the limit. I know on our best bets episode, Kenny took it over 57. And then you asked him, how did you take it? He's like, well, I think this is high it's getting. I'm like, well, if the number's not getting any higher, you're not getting the best of the number here. At worst, it's going to go down and you got a bad number and you should have waited to take it. Now, because of that show, we have to take what we want when at that time. It's not like I can say, put my bet in at Sunday at 2 p.m. because I think it's going to be this. We just take it whenever it's on the board. So that's what he had to do. But if it was going to move, it was going to move down. So it's not surprising for it to start moving a little bit in that direction.
All right. Also, speaking of moves, I got the Chiefs team total over 33.5 on early in the week because I thought that might go up closer to 35. I'm seeing 32.5 on William Hill and 28.5 for the. Was that right? 28.5? Can that be right? That doesn't make any sense.
24.
23.5. I was like, that math is terrible. But that adds up. Obviously, 32.5, 23.5 does add up to 56, which means that's probably where we end up seeing the total go. It probably comes down another half a point. So if you're interested in the under and you're betting on William Hill, you should take it now. Typically speaking, with a total that high, you're not going to see it go like screaming up right before kickoff. It's going to come crashing down.
Yeah, I still like the over, though, because the wind is not supposed to be bad. People were kind of saying earlier in the week, it might be 15. It might be swirling. I think it's looking more like 10.
Yeah, I think I like I don't have any interest in getting behind the under in this game. Like none whatsoever. I mean, there's two, like, I think if I were in the problem with the total here is that you have a Browns team that is really explosive on offense and is like willing to capable of scoring quickly. And they have playmakers and they have a creative coach. And you can see Nick Chubb ripping off a few long runs. And I mean, obviously the Chiefs can score. And anyway, we'll get into that in a minute. Let's get to the DFS because I could absolutely derail us until like the 30-minute mark and then have to scramble back for this. I mentioned that I have some good news. That good news is that you guys are going to be rewarded with yet another entry split. That is right. I'm giving you a $4 present each. We're going to join the please ignore my balance. I have a lot of active lineups right now. I didn't lose all my DFS money yet. Probably will by the end of the evening. But
$12 active and 2,000 pending.
Yeah. No, it's not 2,000. I have a couple. I should cash in a couple golf lineups, so that's good. I've got a 6 of 6 golf lineup that somehow is not going to cash. That is so hard to do. Like you get all 6 guys through the cut, and then it's not going to cash. Like it's almost impossible. I don't know how I did it, but good for me. Anyway, So we're looking at the DraftKings 2-game slate here. We're going to enter the $12 single entry. Let's see if we can figure out what the full contest details are. Look at that. Oh man. I can't wait to chop $5,000 3 ways with you guys, or really more like $3,000 after I take up my taxes. Anyway, let's try and do a lineup here. We'll start with the quarterback position, obviously. And I mean, safe to say that Patrick Mahomes at 7,900, much higher priced than the other guys on this slate. Obviously, Tom Brady, 6,200, Drew Brees, 5,500, and Baker Mayfield, 5,200. Those are your only options you should use. Taysom Hill is supposed to be questionable. I think he might be inactive. Mahomes is probably going to be insanely owned on this slate. Do you see any reason to pivot away from Mahomes? And if you do, is there anybody you like otherwise, Larry?
You know, I hate to say it, but I think Tom Brady is the best value here. You know, highest passer rating in the league the last 5 weeks. They can't really run the ball. We know that. You know, RJ's going to point out the Saints have not allowed a 300-yard passer basically forever, and that he didn't play well in those 2 games. But I think this is a different offense with those 3 guys all in sync, those wideouts plus Scotty Miller. But I'm not. If you guys are dead set on Mahomes, I'm not gonna fight you.
I think you got to choose between either going high for Mahomes or going high at the running back position. So when I built my lineup, I went high at the running back position. I went Brees for my quarterback. You know, no Murray, so he might be throwing more. You know, near the goal line, you might get more touchdowns. No Taysom Hill to take touchdowns away from him. You know that he's snipes you on some touchdowns. So seems like Brees has a little bit more upside than he would in a normal game here, just because of the absences. So I liked Brees at 5,500 on my lineup. Plus, I didn't want to go Brady because I ended up going Saints on my defense. And
any thought whatsoever of going down all the way to Baker Mayfield?
Yeah, he could. It's just with that Chiefs defense, you figured they like to run. They would probably run more on them. So I think the touchdowns you're scoring, I don't know, you're necessarily getting them from Baker. You might get them from Chubb and Hunt, you know, in the run game.
Yeah, I mean, pretty good game against the Steelers there. 263 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. Didn't have a rushing touchdown, and 23 DraftKings points. That's probably his ceiling or thereabouts, right? Maybe if they're in a shootout, he gets up to 304. Whatever, 304 is probably his ceiling. The rushing numbers, he will run, but the rushing numbers aren't quite there for Baker. He's just, yeah, that's probably fair. So what do we think? Brees or Mahomes?
I'm good with Brees and going big on the running backs.
I like it. All right. Let's by the way, I'm trying to remember what we screwed up on the last time we did the lineup we did 2 weeks ago. There was some running back we loved that was just not good. Is it Ronald Jones? Did we get hosed on Ronald Jones?
That might have been
Ronald Jones. Or no, but you like the under on Ronald Jones, right?
Yeah, on his receiving yards.
All right. Well, we talked about big on the running backs, and man, there are some good-looking running backs on here. Clyde Edwards-Helaire officially out for the Chiefs. He's the 3rd highest guy on this slate. We don't know what the deal, speaking of Ronald Jones, is quite yet. He's higher priced than Leonard Fournette by $200. The obvious stick out like a sore thumb value here is Kareem Hunt at 4,800, and you have Alvin Kamara and Nick Chubb up top. What are you sort of looking at with these running backs, Larry?
I want to play Kareem Hunt. You know, he's not just because of the narrative. I don't really care about that, but the Chiefs give up the most yards to receiving running backs in the league, 846 yards. If the Browns are playing from behind, he's going to get plenty of, yards out of the backfield, plus running the ball. I'm also fine to pay up for Nick Chubb. I mean, he's going to have a massive game.
The only concern I have, RJ, about both Browns running backs is that you can get the correlation can get a little out of whack, right?
Yeah, they would have to have a massive game on the ground for them both to get you in a high payout, number here. But I would be fine going with Kamara. I mean, like we said, no Murray, no Taysom Hill, so he could get more targets than usual too. And people are going to want to pay down a little bit here and try to hit that value with Edwards-Helaire out. People will be going Le'Veon Bell. People will try to get value with some of those less guys. So I think there is a chance Kamara and Chubb might not be as owned as usual with people paying up for Mahomes.
Yeah, I think that's possible. And I think if we're gonna go down to Breeze, I love Chubb. He might be my favorite running back in all of professional football. So I would have no problem playing him, Larry. I think if we go Kareem Hunt, I think we probably also I think we want to go Kamara if we're going down to Breeze, just because you get, I mean, like that's kind of
everything. Yeah.
Yeah, correlated stack, right? Like we don't think Kamara, so there's no Latavius Murray. We don't think Kamara is going to have a huge game on the ground. I mean, I just don't. That's just not what happens when you play against Tampa Bay. More likely is that Alvin Kamara is catching a ton of passes, and if he's getting all those passes on a PPR site like DraftKings, and you have Drew Brees starting. I think you want to go with Alvin Kamara. I'm going to assume that at 6,600 that we're also going to double stack Mike Thomas. Is that fair, RJ?
Love Mike Thomas here. I have him in my lineup. He didn't have any touchdowns on the year. Came back last week and got his first touchdown of the year. Looked fine. Looked healthy. They held him out the whole year, waiting for him to get healthy. So he looks good. He figures to be the top option there in the passing game. And I don't know that the Bucs have anybody that can cover him. So 6,600 is really low for him. We saw how low it was last week. It's still taking its time to creep up considering his talent. But if this game was 3 weeks later and we knew he was healthy, it might be 8,600 instead of 6,600. So I like him there.
Agreed. Larry, when you look at the other, and I mean, again, if you're going with Drew Brees as your quarterback, you in these shorter slates, the smaller slates, you don't have to correlate everything. You want to get the highest scoring points and you want to get them there. But I mean, I do think you want to stack in these 2-game slates with the level of talent that you have around there. And so if you're going with Brees, you really need to have Kamara and Thomas as well. And I think too, I would guess that just the psychology of this particular slate is that because the Chiefs and Browns game is early and because the total is 57, 56, whatever it is, that more people are going to try to play those Chiefs and Browns. So if we are going heavy on stacking Brees, Kamara, and Thomas and stacking that late game, we're going to want some bringbacks from the Buccaneers side of things too. But I also think we probably have some pretty good leverage on the field relative to what the roster rate is going to be for the second game. What do you think about maybe some Tampa Bay wide receiver options, or do you think we need to get Tyreek Hill in there, Larry?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. You think we can afford Tyreek Hill? Because I love Chris Godwin this week. I talked about it on the show this morning. He had 4 drops last week, which equals the amount of drops he's had in his entire career. And also Marshawn Lattimore, if you look at it, has done a great job on Mike Evans, historically.
They hate each other.
Yeah. And it's so, I mean, I hope Antonio Brown, Antonio Brown has basically scored every week the last several weeks. So he's another guy. I wonder if we could afford, if we go down to Antonio Brown, could we afford Tyreek Hill? Probably not.
Well, I think the question may even be, RJ, can we afford not to have Travis Kelce?
He's the clear option here. I think it's good to have him in the lineup. That's one of the reasons you pay down at quarterback, is so you can fit Kelce in there. So I don't think you need both Hill and Kelce. I mean, they contribute a little bit more than half of all touchdowns for the Chiefs. I think they have 27 combined and the Chiefs have 53. So it'd be great to have them both. But, if you're not playing Mahomes, I don't think you need both. I think you can go Kelce. And then because Watkins is out, look at some of the cheaper options, maybe go with a DeMarcus Robinson or a Hardman for the Chiefs and try to get a little value on that. And that could also boost you up if you want to get a more expensive option somewhere else.
And I think there's a very good chance that Mecole Hardman is a big time chalk play here with Sammy Watkins out. And I will be very curious to see what the Chiefs do from a third wide receiver perspective, or I guess third pass catcher perspective, because, when Sammy Watkins has been out in the past, it has been DeMarcus Robinson who's filled that role. Mecole Hardman only has like 26 career postseason receiving yards. I mean, in 3 games last year, he wasn't used a ton in the receiving in terms of being a receiver. And additionally, I think he only played average like 25% of the snaps the final 2 weeks of the season. Now, to me, that screams. And like, I would assume that if Andy Reid wants Mecole Hardman to be a huge part of his postseason game plan on offense, that he would ramp up his snaps and get him into sort of a groove heading into the playoffs. To me, it almost screams like they're going to use DeMarcus Robinson, but I think that's going to be a key factor in terms of how this slate plays out. What I always like to do when you get down to these last 2 spots, and maybe I'm doing it wrong, but I think we should probably pick a defense to roll with here, and then we can sort of see our flexed options from there. Obviously, you can see we have $7,000 remaining, so we can pick any defense we want. Suffice to say, going with, if we have Godwin and we have Antonio Brown, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to do the Saints defense, right? And if we have Drew Brees and Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas and they're our linchpin, doesn't make a whole lot of sense to use the Buccaneers either. Do you think it's fair to say that we need to go Chiefs and or Browns, Larry?
I mean, taking the Browns is kind of, that's going to be a tough one to swallow, but maybe we should look at the flex first and just see which defense we're forced into.
Okay.
RJ, what do you think?
I would be fine going Chiefs here. I mean, the problem is that's the higher point total game. So I think a lot of people will be looking Bucs Saints. I know in my lineup I have the Saints because I didn't go too heavy on the Bucs.
We could go Saints. I mean, I think the way the lineup is currently constructed, you would probably lean towards Chiefs and Browns. The Chiefs are pretty pricey for a defense that isn't great. I think ultimately on this, and this is true yesterday to a certain degree, is that like the Bills were the highest scoring defense yesterday, obviously. But I think today it is not going to be about who holds the team to the fewest points so much as who comes away with a turnover and takes it to the house. That's basically what flips a slate for these defenses, which is why I wouldn't have a huge problem paying down for the Browns or up for the Chiefs if we think that's a more likely scenario.
Yeah, the problem with the Chiefs is that Baker only has one pick since like week 7 or 8. I have the stat here that we'll talk about in a minute. So I would lean Chiefs here, but yeah, it would have to be an uncharacteristic day from Baker, and maybe he has that. It just we don't know. He played really well against the Steelers last week, like you were saying. So maybe he has a dud in him at this point. But it's you see those matchup tabs there. I mean, all of them are bad matchups. All these are both supposed to be high scoring games. So you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't with whatever you pick.
All right. Well, then let's take Larry's idea and let's figure out. So remember, we have to reserve at least 2,300. So
go ahead and put the Chiefs in, and then if we see a flex we want that's $800, somewhere in the range, we can move it down off the Chiefs.
All right. So
Deontay Harris fits in very nicely right there.
Yes, he does. And
7 targets last week. So
yeah, I mean it does.
But he only ran 14 routes. But I guess when he was on there, the guy was open. I mean, there was separation.
Right.
Yeah, I mean is there any reason to believe that? I mean, I have no problem with that. If we go down to Harris, we are all in on the Saints. Like the Saints have a big day, but if the Saints have a big day and the Chiefs and Browns game is a little lower scoring than people expect, which is not out of the realm of possibility. Like we have seen the Chiefs plenty of times with the Falcons game. Like I don't think the Falcons profile that differently. The Falcons are probably a better defense than the Browns, but not substantially. Like the Chiefs could have a bunch of methodical drives. Could settle for some field goals. The Browns could run the ball, pound the rock a ton, and maybe it's a low scoring game. Like if that happens, then I mean, all of a sudden, you have massive leverage if the Saints come out and throw up a ton of points. So I think that's at least an outcome worth considering. Inside the realm of the $800, I think this is where they're trying to make you make these decisions. And this is where the pricing is pretty good because we can fit all these guys we want in there, but then we just have to make a decision on the tight end, or just on the tight end on the flex spot as it relates to that defense. Because man, I look at it, you see Mecole Hardman there. He has such huge upside if he ends up getting enough passes. Or you also see, I mean, Ty Montgomery, could he end up getting some carries for the Saints again today? Demarcus Robinson, who we could go to there if we bought down on the defense, and then Austin Hooper, who I really like as well in this spot. Looks like we can go up to 4,300. I don't see a ton of guys. Maybe Emmanuel Sanders, although his target share has evaporated with the return of Michael Thomas. Any thoughts as to how we should handle that?
I'd love to get one more piece of the Chiefs offense there. I mean, because right now we're just all in on Kelsey and there's nothing else, that can help us. So
yeah, you go Robinson or Hardman. I think either of those is probably the way to go.
All right. So how do y'all think this? I really don't know. And I don't think anybody except Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and Eric Bieniemy and maybe Mecole Hardman and Demarcus Robinson really know how this is going to play out. What do you guys think? And yeah, you're right. We have one piece of the Chiefs offense that's a little dangerous.
Yeah, I like Robinson a little better. It seems to me like they target him more in the red zone. And he tends to drop it. You think back to week 1, I believe it was, where he had 2 drops that were soul crushing. But He should get some targets. I'm going to go over on his props when we talk about props in a little bit, because he's gotten to 4 catches in four. I think he's got there 5 times all year, and 4 of them were when Sammy Watkins was out. So it just seems like there's a nice little floor there for a guy that you're paying hardly anything for.
I mean, obviously, I don't think we can go for the Buccaneers here. We have 1 piece to the Browns. We have 2 for the Chiefs. I mean, I think isn't it either Saints or Browns? I mean, the Saints probably have the best defense of all these teams.
Yeah, I'm fine with the Saints here.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only downside to the Saints is if the Saints defense is really good, does it preclude our Saints offensive pieces from blowing up? Maybe not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think we're going to get 40 pass attempts from Brady, which is a lot of opportunities for the Saints. So I'm good with them.
Okay. And look, if you get pressure on Brady, he'll start throwing up ducks. He's not afraid of he's throwing picks like crazy this year. All right, let's go with the Saints. Well. $300 left on the table. Perfect. Should be a fairly unique lineup. Saints heavy. And you can see obviously that there are many other routes you can take. You can go with the Baker route if you wanted to pay down. If you felt like you really needed to get up and get those pieces for the Chiefs, we're leaving Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans. I don't like leaving those top 3 receivers on the board, but there's only so many guys you can take. And I do like the leverage that we have in terms of going on this late game. So we're just hoping for this particular lineup, guys. No points scored, and hope that the Saints take off in the late stages. I will also be you know what? Hold on. We're gonna do one more thing just in case. This is a rookie mistake. You got to remember this for fantasy purposes as well. Look at all these lines. I got a little Baker Mayfield action. Yeah, you like that? Anything look terrible on any of these? I got to get Manny Sanders out of there. I think that's a placeholder. There's our lineup. Let's can't do the rookie mistake. You gotta make sure you put the early playing wide receiver in the wide receiver slot, so that way if something happened, you'd be able to pivot out of Chris Godwin there in the late spot. Pretty savvy move by yours truly, right? Yeah,
look at you. You're a pro. I'm guaranteed to win here.
Yeah, I almost didn't assign the lineup. You can just applaud me silently. Don't worry about it. Okay, let's get back to the games and talk about the spreads here. We'll start with the early game. Get back to it. When you look at this Chiefs game, and let's make sure William Hill odds haven't changed. A quick refresh here. Still 8 has normalized on the juice. The total has not come down yet. As you guys mentioned, you like the Browns. You still like the Browns at +8?
Yep. I wouldn't go 2 units like I probably would have if it was still +10 earlier in the week, but I'll go for 1 unit for the Browns +8. I think this line should be 7. I think that they can keep it close because teams have been keeping it close on the Chiefs, since week 8. Chiefs are vulnerable against the run. They didn't play a lot of good rush offenses in the second half, so that might not be apparent in their stats. And Baker's playing well, hardly any picks. Cleveland's offense is 3rd in red zone success rate, while the Chiefs defense is 32nd in that same category. So Chiefs can get down there and get touchdowns, not have to rely on field goals, and that's how you keep a game close. So yeah, I would still go Browns here. I think it's going to be a relatively close game.
Okay.
Same here. I mean, of course I prefer more points, but yeah, I'll take 8.
Sure.
2 things. I mean, 4.5 yards a carry is what the Chiefs give up. So the Browns will be able to run the ball. And number 2, the Browns don't blitz a lot. They get pressure with the front 4. I think they're the 3rd least blitzing team in the league. And Mahomes, destroys the blitz. It's foolish to blitz him, and the Browns don't need to do that. So, and they get, of course, Denzel Ward and Kevin Johnson back on the back end.
Man, they're showing I have ESPN and CBS on. CBS is showing 60 minutes. ESPN was showing a shirtless David Njoku. That man is a freak athlete. I was looking up. I noticed that on establishthерun.com, big fan of that site. I mentioned it frequently, that Brandon Thorne, who does defensive line and offensive line matchups and breaks those down, actually had as his number 1 mismatch in the entire divisional round of the playoffs, Browns defensive line against Chiefs offensive line, which is, I mean, that's pretty shocking. I don't think the average fan would consider that the Browns have a big advantage there. And that is how you beat Patrick Mahomes, being able to play coverage on the back end and not having to blitz to try to beat him. Because if you blitz him, he's going to light you up, as you point out, Larry. You also pointed out that we can see let's do, we'll look at these player props first. Browns and Chiefs player props, 56.5 total. So clearly there are going to be some bigger numbers here. I'll start with you, RJ. Anything you referenced a couple to Marcus Robinson, maybe what's your early prop that you would attack in this game?
Yeah, we also mentioned earlier Cleveland +6 on the first half. I would go that for a unit too. I think that's a good play. Chiefs offense has had 2 weeks off. I don't know that they're going to be sharp out of the gate, and that Cleveland offense presumably is going to be better earlier in the game. If it is a blowout and they have to throw, that's not conducive to what they want to do. So +6 seems to line up well in the first half. Then when you're looking at props, I've talked about Patrick Mahomes over rushing yards. I talked about that on early edge, and he was 19.5. Now it's up to 21.5 with heavy juice on the over. People are hammering it because they know that last year he didn't have more than 7 carries during the regular season. He had 7, 8, and 9 in the playoffs, top 20 yards in each of those games. He's top 20 yards in 9 of his 15 games this year, including 4 of his last 5. It just seems like if they're getting pressure on him, he rolls out and he can take off and pick up some first downs. So I think that's going to be in the game plan here, and I would like that to go over, even though it's shooting up right now.
I think we're moving some lines on the early edge, RJ, because when I gave out Kareem Hunt, it was 16.5 receiving yards, and now it's 18.5 juice to the over. Based on the fact that they could be trailing and the Chiefs give up the most yards receiving to running backs. So, but I still like it.
Yeah, and then the DeMarcus Robinson, like I mentioned earlier, over 3.5 receptions. When I checked it was +120. I don't know if you can find it there. And no, Sammy Watkins means more targets for him. Like I said, he's gotten to 4 receptions 5 times this year, 4 of them in the 6 games that Watkins missed, including that Week 17 game. So that's not really indicative of what the Chiefs do, but it's still something.
Look at that plus juice on 3.5 for DeMarcus Robinson.
So I think he hits that more often than not. He gets to 4. So I like that one. I think they'll rely on him a little more than they would otherwise.
What else? Yeah, go ahead, Larry.
Sorry, I just got one more. Tyreek Hill, longest catch, 25.5. I'm going to go over on that one. I mean, if you look at 75, 30, 44, there was one game he had 19 and 31. His last 5, he's gone way over in 4 of 5. I mean, the Browns secondary, I think, will be better this week, but
looks like you're moving this line too. It's 26.5 and it's juiced the over too. I bet I wouldn't be surprised at all if that gets up to like 29. I mean, yeah, he's a big play waiting to happen.
Yeah, you just need one to cash that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I actually have a couple written down. I mean, this is bad juice. So, and I mentioned it yesterday when it was better. It was at -135. But the very first one on here just stuck out in a big way to me. Baker Mayfield over total passing touchdowns. I mean, you got to lay 150 now to do it, which is clearly suboptimal. But 135 yesterday. I was eyeing that thing because I just feel like he could easily throw 2 passing touchdowns against this Chiefs defense that isn't very good. Now, they probably run, and if you get in the red zone, it's going to be tough. But they use a lot of play action, particularly on 2nd and 3rd down in the red zone. And he loves targeting his tight ends. He has all 3 guys active in terms of Austin Hooper, Harrison Bryant, and David Njoku. So I think we could see plenty of tight end work for them. The one thing that you might get you here is if there's some sort of trick play and Jarvis Landry's throwing the football as he has sometimes during the year. But I kind of like that Baker over. Did we mention Kareem Hunt over receiving yards? 18.5.
Yep.
It's up.
Yep.
Yeah, up to 125. I had that written down. I think that might be my favorite bet because I think you can get there any number of ways. If the game script plays out where the Chiefs are beating the Browns by a substantial margin, then you could see him throw a bunch of dump offs. But I think you could even get there in the first quarter, the way that they rotate those guys in there and the way that they utilize Kareem Hunt in the passing game when they're trying to be aggressive. They do it around the red zone as well. I like the over for Kareem Hunt rushing yards at 32.5. And I thought that the number Nick Chubb rushing attempts. Oh, actually, I like Nick Chubb's over receiving too at 15.5. I mean, he's been way more involved in the passing game the last few weeks. He has 26, 21, 16, 38, 0 against the Steelers in that Week 17 game, and then 69 receiving yards in the playoff game against Pittsburgh. So I don't know that number necessarily reflects his passing game usage.
He could be good. I also think he's the play for first touchdown, plus 800 on him. Hard to go with a value play on Kansas City side there. And Chubb, it just seems like they get down near the red zone. I mean, he could break one from anywhere. So, I mean, he could get it in the red zone. He can get it from 60 yards out with him. So, I think, going over on some Chubb props is probably pretty good. Yeah,
I got Chubb at 8-1. I would agree with that too. Tyreek Hill's 5-1, Kelsey 5-1. I'm not looking at the right website, am I? I'm looking at my personal website. Let's go to this one. Oh, It's Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill 6-1. I agree with you. Chubb at 8-1 is a good value. There's a guy on here with Clyde Edwards-Helaire inactive. Oh, Darrell Williams 14-1. I've got him at 20-1 on my site. That is absolute 20-1 for Darrell Williams, who gets the red zone carries for the Chiefs in all likelihood. To me, is a great number.
Yeah, if you can find it. And Demarcus Robinson, I've talked up to 20-1. He could be an option in the red zone as well. So, but yeah, that's a good value if you could find it on Darrell Williams.
All right, I'm gonna put. That's why when Larry was giving out a prop, I checked out. I was putting in a Darrell Williams bet, and I'm currently putting in another one. I'm also going to take the problem. I mean, Chubb at 8-1. I agree with you. Like it's a great play. It's just so expensive. And I like Austin Hooper at 17-1 as well. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was just going to bring him up, especially if everyone's keen on Chubb down there. Could be a great chance. I'm seeing 16-1 right now on William Hill.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. You can tell I'm literally putting in my bets because I'm all right. Let me get this before these move, because these things start to move like crazy once you get closer to the game, because people come in and are peppering some of these longer shots. I'll see these things drop. Like, I mean, the odds will get cut in half at the last minute. Anything you guys like in terms of anytime touchdown score? Travis Kelce at -175. I mean, he's probably going to score one, but that's pretty expensive, and he's obviously not guaranteed for one. I kind of love Chubb at -125 just because they use him in the red zone so much. As you mentioned, the Chiefs are vulnerable against a run, and it is entirely possible that he jailbreaks one.
That's a good one. Your guy Darrell Williams, like you said, is +250. That's a pretty good value there too. So either of those, maybe even Mahomes running it in. Gotta try to generate some more offense with no Edwards-Helaire. So worried about him throwing a touchdown if they get near the red zone. He might just have the corner of the end zone open and rush one in. So I think that's a possibility too.
And Chubb has scored in 7 straight now.
That is ridiculous. They just get him the rock. Don't bet on Sammy Watkins. He's out. Demarcus Robinson at 275. I don't really hate either. By the way, would you dabble on Mahomes at 15-1, his first touchdown score? It feels like he's constantly getting like little bootlegs or little option plays down there when they're close to the goal line.
Yeah, it seems a little not quite enough value for me. I probably want to get a little bit better than that. So first touchdown, I'd stay away from. You
know who I don't hate for the first touchdown? Ooh, wait, Baker's 6.5-1 anytime touchdown score. That is tasty. 30-1 for Baker. I like 30-1 for Baker too. Baker will use his legs in the red zone. He ain't scared to do that. I'll probably dabble on that a little bit. All right, you know what? It's 2:40, so we got like 20 minutes. Is this game really kicking off at 3:00? Football's already here. How lovely. I love divisional round weekend. Let's kick on over to the other game on the slate. It also feels pretty good that we've got from a host perspective that we've already got our DFS taken care of. You see, remember last time you guys were on and I was -150, not to mention DFS once because we took so long getting through all 6 of the games. Now it is a lock that we will get it done. William Hill refreshes. You can see that the Saints are -2.5, juiced a little bit, -115. Do you think we see that get to 3? And is the total starting to creep up here, Larry? What do you take from the line movement on this game?
Well, I mean, it's been 3 all week. I think you could have gotten 3.5 right at the open. And I wish I did. I got 3. I know most people that I talk to are on the Saints, but I'm on the other side. It's not a hugely strong opinion, but I just think, the way they got embarrassed twice, the way this offense has played coming out of the bye, 6.9 yards per play, best in the NFL the last 5 weeks. Devin White is back. That's huge. 140 tackles, 9 sacks. Of course, he was there in the 2 games they played the Saints already, but there's more pressure on the Saints. Is it Drew Brees' last game, the playoff failures, Brady with everything he's done? I mean, I don't think people are going to say this is a huge failure if they lose in this game. I think he can play a little freer. They did also have an extra day of rest, and it just looks funny when they outscored him 72-26 to see this line under a field goal. To me, that's just fishy.
Yeah, when it was 3, I was kind of a stay away, but now it's down 2.5. I kind of like the Saints for a unit. The offense finally was getting healthy, and now we see Taysom and Murray out, so who knows about that. But the defense got back to dominating last week. Tampa's offense has been going nuts, but they're playing teams like Atlanta and Detroit, and then they had a good one last week. But But I don't know. The one thing I do know is that the Saints should be able to score on this Tampa defense. Those two games that Tampa played New Orleans, that was the highest point totals that Tampa's defense allowed all season. So, New Orleans won a weird game in week 1. They dominated the second meeting. I think it's more likely they dominate the Bucs than the other way around. Tampa's also playing their 4th road game in 5 weeks. Possible they run out of gas just having to hit the road so much in this last part of the season. So yeah, I think New Orleans is a little bit better bet here. I like the under as well, especially since it's creeped up above 52. Put a little bit on that there because I think the New Orleans offense could get conservative in the second half if their defense is dictating the game.
By the way, apologies. I didn't congratulate you, RJ, on losing your teaser and having the Buffalo Bills advance to the AFC Championship game.
I'll take it.
That's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, and it wasn't a bad bet on the teaser. I mean, that game, that was a
teaser
13-10 game if I ever saw one, and I didn't want to take the Ravens plus 2.5 because I thought the Bills were good enough to win the game. And so it's just hard to back the Ravens there, but love the teaser. Figured it would be a little bit more defensive scoring battle with the weather. And that's what it came down to. The Bills offense didn't play well. But they're up against a really good defense and they did enough to win. And yeah, if we should have got the backdoor late, I think we should have
missed Lamar Jackson for a quarter. Justin Tucker, and I know Tyler Bass missed 2 as well, but he's a rookie kicker in a playoff game. Justin Tucker's Justin freaking Tucker. He missed his 2 field goals off the upright, and they got a 101-yard pick 6 return. And they still almost backdoored the teaser.
They had the touchdown. The pass was just like a yard overthrown. I mean, that was a touchdown.
Yeah, Andrews had it. The whole thing.
Yeah, I would bet it. I mean, knowing it's going to lose, I would go bet it again because it just seemed like most instances that game is played X covering.
See, if I knew it was going to lose, I wouldn't bet it.
But that's the difference between you and me.
That's right. Yeah, I'm just. It is. That's the exact difference between you and me. Would you, if you could do it over, would you replace the Chiefs -1? If you knew the Chiefs are going to get down to 8, would you replace or it's -2, I guess. Would you prefer Chiefs -2 to Ravens plus 8.5?
No, because that game was close. It was back and forth. It was a defensive battle. It's everything that should have covered 8.5. I mean, if you know that they're going to lose by whatever they lost by, of course you don't tease them. But knowing how that game played out and watching that game with my own 2 eyes for 3 hours, there's no reason that the Ravens shouldn't have covered 8.5.
Yeah. But back to the Bucs and the Chiefs. Bucs and the Saints, excuse me. So the Saints team total there, 27.5. Do you like that over then? If you think they're good, I mean, the way we put that DFS lineup together, you'd think that we like that over, right?
Yeah, I think that the over could hit. I like them to go over theirs more than the Bucs. I would be more confident with the Bucs under than I would the Saints over. Let's just say that.
Okay. Bucs at 25 and us. All right. Interesting. Would you mess around with any of these alternate totals? You go under. What's the lowest that they'll go here?
No, because I gave up an alternate total on the Pick 6 podcast. Instead of taking the Rams under at 19.5 on your podcast, I took Rams under 18 at plus 100, and that was the number that came out to bite me in the butt. So I'm doing that again.
Do you know Sam Pantanovich for who works at Nesson?
Vison, right?
Yeah, he used to be. Now he's at Nesson in Boston. Sam, also a glasses wearing fella. I love Sam, but he does the chicken dinner podcast. And I saw last night that he replied, and somebody was like, he was like, winner on Rams team total under, and somebody replied was like, CBS Sports Pick 6 podcast, but didn't tag any of us. They're like, gave out alternate Rams total under 18 at 2-1, and he was like, that's not our total. But it was just very bizarre that that person didn't tag us. I don't know. That was
another very prominent person in the industry who is pretty popular also gave out team total under 18. Both people were thinking the same way, get a better value. What was it? Even money for a number that's supposed to be dead.
2-1?
18 is supposed to be dead.
No, it wasn't 2-1. 2-1 was my Browns over.
Oh, that's right.
It was even odds. It was, instead of when we did the podcast, it was -115 on the regular total and then plus 100 on the 18. And since we're, tracking our numbers and I wanted to stay on whole numbers, I decided to go down to 18 instead of taking instead to win 20 instead of 19 and 20 cents or whatever it would have been. So bad job by me there.
I lost everything on the Ravens. At least I took, I got Cam Akers over rushing yard prop. So I got that going for me. What's, anyway, but back to I don't know what the hell the point was of that, but we're talking about team totals. That's what it was. So looking at the Bucs, the one thing that gives me pause, I know that they've been great out of the bye. I know that Tom Brady's looked awesome, but they played the Vikings, Falcons, Lions, and Falcons a second time. And then they hung 31 on Washington. And that Lions team, like they put up 47 against them and 44 against Atlanta in the final week. Like that Lions team was, I mean, literally being coached by like an assistant special teams coach. I mean, they had no chance of hanging with Brady. The Saints are by far and away the best defense that they've played really since November, since Thanksgiving. So I don't think we can definitively, the people suggesting that Brady's just going to come out here and light things up, to me, I don't necessarily see it happening, but I think there's some value here in terms of like, look at his under on passing touchdowns. His unders minus 190 on 2.5. What about thoughts on props here in this game, guys? Oh my goodness, I see one I love, by the way.
Well, I'm just going to point out that they did hang 31 on Washington, which is an excellent defense, and that was with Chris Godwin dropping 4 to 5 balls, depending on how you score it. And that's the first prop that I love is Godwin right there. You see it on the screen, 68.5 receiving yards. He's gone over it in 3 straight. He had 12 targets last week. He's not going to drop 4 balls again today. Mike Evans, like we talked about, does not usually show up big in this matchup. So I just love Godwin today.
Sticking back to Tom Brady, under 307.5 pass yards. No quarterback has thrown for 300 yards against the Saints all year. That includes Brady twice. 239 and 209 were his totals. And that's nowhere near 307, obviously. Saints defense is playing well. No reason to think they'll just completely fall apart here. Only one opposing quarterback has thrown for 300 yards in New Orleans over the last 2 years, Jimmy Garoppolo during the 49ers run last year. So I don't know why you'd expect a huge day just because he got in a run against, like you said, Atlanta and Detroit to close out the year. Those are defenses that he should be picking apart. New Orleans is a much different defense. So I like Brady to stay under 307.5, even if it's a competitive game. I just don't think he's gonna be able to exploit that defense over and over to get to this number.
That's a big number. You don't see a path to, so the 2 times that these teams played 34, I mean, the Saints won by double digits both times. In week 1, 34-23. Felt like the Bucs might have even scored late in sort of a garbage time game. And then they had the late field goal to make it 38-3 in that week 9 bludgeoning on primetime where Bruce Arians took the 3 points just so he didn't get shut out like a coward. Love Bruce Arians, but come on, buddy. But there's no risk it, no biscuit. You make it 38-3. What are we doing here? It's sad. Do you think there's a path where the Saints just obliterate the Buccaneers and Tom Brady sort of checked out and chunking the ball straight up in the air?
I don't think he's going to check out. I think he's going to. It's not like that. I heard you bring up Aaron Rodgers checking out against, I believe it was the Bucs earlier in the season. Yeah. And that's just not going to happen in the playoffs because there's no reason to save your breath. No reason to save your breath and play for the wait for next week. You got to throw it all out there. So I don't think Brady's checking out for any means, but I just think that defense could rise up and have a great game, and the Saints win 38-10. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. I would be shocked if it happened the other way around. So I'm not saying it is going to happen that way. It's obviously a close line for a reason, but I think that Saints blowout is more on the table than a Bucs blowout.
And you guys mentioned, I mean, you guys are trashing the Bucs schedule down the stretch, and that's legit in some aspects. But look, I mean, you just trash the Falcons, and then the Falcons hold the Chiefs to what? I mean, 15? I don't remember. That was like a 17-14 game or whatever that was.
Falcons in the second half of the season are not a bad team.
So I think you got to give the Bucs some credit for the adjustments they made down the stretch. And one guy I'm looking at these props is Scotty Miller, the number 4 receiver, definitely relegated. But since the bye, over 2 targets a game, his number for receiving yards is 7.5. He's just got to make 1 catch. And he's done it, I think, 4 of the last 5 weeks. Brady likes him. They're not going to be able to run the ball. I don't think anyone expects them to run the ball very well. I think you're going to see 4 wideouts, fairly often out there. So that's another prop I like for the Bucs.
I think he leans more on Godwin and Brown and then even Miller than he does Mike Evans. We talked about the matchup with Lattimore. Evans under 4.5 reception is plus 110. He's averaged 4.4 receptions in the regular season. So this isn't a particularly low number for him, but he hasn't gotten to more than 4 receptions against New Orleans in the last 5 meetings. It's been 4-4-4-1, so I would take him under that, especially with the plus money there.
I think I heard a stat, and maybe I was listening to a podcast with Evan Silva on it, and I don't want to incorrectly cite him here, but it was like Mike Evans has run 72 routes against Marshawn Lattimore. He has like 6 catches or something like that. I mean, or maybe it's 0 catches on 6 targets or something. It's something crazy where you're like, what? I mean, Marshawn Lattimore, I'm telling you, Marshall, remember these guys got in that crazy fight that I think got Evans ejected back when Jameis came out and like poked Lattimore in the back of the head. And then Lattimore went after Jameis and Mike Evans came after Lattimore. Like they hate each other. And so Lattimore just gets amped up for like, he's like maxed out for these games. And I would not be surprised at all if Evans, who's kind of banged up, is more of a decoy than anything and just used to drag Lattimore out of the way so that way Brady can pepper Godwin and Antonio Brown. The other number I like that we can see up on the screen here, under Rob Gronkowski total receiving yards. I know that Gronk is he's Gronk. Maybe things will be a little bit different in the playoffs here, but he had one target against the Washington football team. And if you look at his numbers, really ever since the bye, he's had one game where he's had over 4 targets. He's had one game where he's had over 2 catches. Now he's had 29 receiving yards on 3 catches, 58 on 2, 29 on 2. Of course, he can get down the field. He's freaking Gronk. But against a really good defense with a strong defensive front, I think that we'll probably see Gronk stay in line and block a ton in this game, and they'll use him less in the receiving in terms of receiving. Any thoughts on that?
Logic checks out to me. I mean, I know that the Saints can give up some yardage to tight ends. So matchup wise, maybe they want to exploit that. But yeah, I think it's more critical to have him in his blocking capacity. So yeah, you could see him get a lot of snaps, but not as many targets, just because better ways to go with the ball, and you need him in there blocking.
Okay. All right. Any other? Oh, we didn't look at first touchdown score here for Buccaneers and Saints. Ronald Jones. What is Rojo doing up there? What are you doing, William Hill? Come on. That means if Rojo's up there 9-1, that means there's got to be some good value elsewhere. Gosh, Mike Evans at 10-1. I know we just mentioned Marshawn Lattimore and the issues that he deals with. He's not going to be on him every time. And Mike Evans is a red zone hog. He should not be 10-1 in my opinion. Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown at 11 and 12-1 are pretty enticing there as well. Obviously, Taysom Hill you don't want to play. And for the Saints side or Latavius Murray, I think all the value sucked out of Kamara at 4.5-1, but he is intriguing. I don't hate Thomas at 9-1. Any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I like Thomas at 9-1. Came back to last week to catch his first touchdown of the year. They should lean on him in this great matchup. I like Brown. He's matched Godwin touchdown for touchdown if you look at his game logs throughout the last 4 games. So I'd take the slightly better value there with Brown instead of Godwin. Also like Brown anytime touchdown at plus 200 for the same reason. If he's catching touchdowns in his last 4 games, seems like plus 200 is a good value there.
Yeah, 5 touchdowns for Antonio Brown last 4 games.
Yeah, so that's pretty good. I can see Antonio Brown having a big old game. All right, so let's don't feel free to utilize either game when you're sort of doing this. But I'm just curious. It's like 5 minutes. What's is it 3:05 kick? Yeah, we got 10 minutes and 30 seconds according to the countdown to kickoff clock on CBS Sports. Make sure, of course, to fire up or on CBS, I guess. Fire up your local broadcast to get that. If you don't have TV or an HD, if you don't have cable or an HD antenna or whatever, you know what you could do to get this game on your television. You could go to sportsline.com/join, use promo code. What promo code?
Let's use Edge.
Promo code Edge.
Get your first month for free.
You get your first. Oh, that's right. Yeah. You use RJ's code White. You only get your first month for $1. Use promo code Edge. You get your first month for free. And with that, you get a subscription to CBS All Access, in which you can now watch the Chiefs and Browns game when it kicks off at 3:05. So we got about 5 minutes left on our show, and then we'll have 5 minutes for me to scramble and plug in a bunch of bets that I'll ultimately regret later, but that I got from you guys. If you guys had to make one bet today on the for each game, what or you know what, if you want to say 2, whatever, but give me your best bets as and you know what, I'm going to do my best. Larry, give it to me.
Coach, Kareem Hunt over receiving yards. That's the one I love the most. I loved it at 16.5. I'll still play it at 18.5.
How about 19.5 with juice?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hypothetically speaking. Now
that the line's down to 8 for the Browns, I'll say Browns plus 6 in the first half is probably my best bet there in that game.
Okay. Did you have a best bet on a prop that you liked, RJ? Did I miss that?
I like the Mahomes over rush. I mean, it's crept up enough to maybe I jump off of that and say go Demarcus Robinson over 3.5 receptions again, just for that juice to try to squeeze out a little bit of extra value there.
24.5 now. It was like 6.5 earlier this week.
Yeah, it was like 19.5 earlier today, or when I was doing my research last night. So people are all over it. 24.5, I'm probably not touching it. It's just too high at that point. But D-Rob over 3.5 receptions if I'm going with a prop.
Okay. And what about that late game, Larry?
Well, my
addicted to this down. Like, give it to me.
I'm gonna go way off the board. I'm gonna go Kawhi Leonard again, under 6.5 rebounds tonight.
Oh!
This guy's been over that once all year. He had 16 rebounds. I just keep playing it 6.5. They posted 6.5 again. He had 4 last time. No, but in terms of football,
hey, no, I don't care. You can give out whatever bet you want. That's
what I'm personally on. If you ask me what I'm personally on, that's what I'm on. And Godwin, I just think he's going to bounce back big time. The Mike Evans thing that we talked about. And I just think he's going to definitely get to 70 yards.
Okay.
So Brady under 307.5 pass yards. Just with that matchup on the defense, people are looking at the name Tom Brady. That's why that number is so high. It just seems so high to me that you're getting a lot of value on the under there.
All right. Yeah, I dig that first half Cleveland line. Does it matter to you if Cleveland gets the ball first in that instance at all? Not really.
I mean, yeah, not really. I mean, they'll have about the same number of possessions, so we'll see how it goes. I just don't think the Chiefs are going to start, out of the gates hot. They just haven't done it in the playoffs, and they haven't really done it in the second half of the season.
Yeah, like I said, I like the I'm with Larry on that Kareem Hunt over receiving yards. I'm about to take it at 19.5. I'm already annoyed that it's bumped up that much, but I don't care. Mahomes at 24.5 is just ridiculous. And I like that Goblin over as well. Who do we see? Do you think we get Chiefs and Bills, or do the Browns make it happen? What do you guys think?
I would love to see Browns Bills. I mean, not just because I think it's an easier matchup for my Bills. It's just those two fan bases getting to play to go to the Super Bowl would be awesome after the Chiefs got there last year. So that would be amazing. I'll go ahead and I'll call it. I'll say, yeah, Browns Bills. We deserve it. It's 2021. Give us something that we want. I mean, we saw the Chiefs. Chiefs are a great team, but Browns and Bills would be amazing.
What, Larry? What do you think? What do you think our bosses want to see in this, in terms of this? Like, because I think I think that ultimately they want Rodgers and Mahomes in the Super Bowl. I think that
for sure. It's like the NCAA tournament when they love the Cinderellas, but then second weekend,
Yeah, they like the Cinderellas in the opening round. They like Cinderellas in the Final Four. They're like, oh my goodness gracious, no! Like when George Mason made that run, it's like no, or like the what's her name, the old lady with Loyola. They're like, all right, this is great, but didn't lose. Who do you think comes out today as a winner, Larry?
Yeah, I think it's going to be the Chiefs, and I mean the other game I really think is a toss-up, and that's why I took the points. But I think ultimately, we're going to get Chiefs Packers.
All right, I think we might get Chiefs Packers too, but first I think we're going to get Packers Saints and Chiefs Bills, and that is a juicy couple of championship games. All right, there's about
Bills Packers. Bills are going to beat the Chiefs. Don't worry about it.
Bills can beat the Chiefs. Bills can absolutely. Bills are an awesome team.
What is that line opened at? I mean, what is that? I haven't seen the prospective lines, but
am I allowed to cite other sports books on here?
Maybe just throw it out without a. Maybe
okay.
Was it 6?
I saw 4.5. I think.
Oh, 4.5.
Yeah, which
that makes sense.
Checks out. Like, there's no way. We were saying on the show, we were talking about on the live pod last night, and we were saying there's no way in hell they're going to make the Chiefs 3 points or less. Like they're not going to give you a chance to lay less than 3 points with Patrick Mahomes, and they're not going to give you a chance to get 7 points with Josh Allen. So it's just going to be somewhere in the middle there, and with his. I think a lot probably depends on how the Chiefs look today. Like if they eviscerate the Browns, then you could absolutely see Kansas City being like 6 or 5.
You're not going to see 7, not against these Bills yet.
No, because the Bills are just really good. All right, the game's starting in a couple of minutes. Go get your bets in. Larry and RJ gave you out some great picks. Make sure if you like what you heard, or you just want to win money for free, make sure and subscribe to the Early Edge podcast. It's out every morning by 11 a.m. featuring Larry, RJ, the coach host every day. Tom Fornelli's on there dishing out like Italian Series A soccer bets and like Bundesliga and stuff. You get all your action, tons of winners. They're tracking them and they are crushing it. Go check that out and go to sportsline.com/join. Use promo code EDGE. Get your first month for free. Thanks, guys, as always, for taking the time. Great stuff, and enjoy the games.
Likewise.